as a psych graduate, I can tell you, and you'd agree with me when someone assesses someone's psychological like capabilities or their emotional intelligence or just their overall capacity for success in life. This is largely based upon the quality of their relationships, right? So you talk to a person, talk to the people closest to the person to figure these things out. You would. So I kind of want to take some time to analyze the 3 most impactful relationship dynamics that I can think about, and we can collaborate, using your expertise in the field. Yeah. We can use experiences with your clients. I mean, not to name names, but just experiences with them and possibly even our own personal experiences. We can figure out the challenges and the solutions towards healing in these dynamics.
Yeah, let's do it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I know you have a lot of different posts you see on Instagram with a lot of different topics, you're kind of getting people ready to learn and to think about different areas around this umbrella of healing, right? Essentially. Okay. So let's start with interpersonal. So that would be like colleagues, friends, coworkers, these kinds of relationships, right? Day-to-day relationships. Let's say you are at work and your boss is like, here, do this work. And you do the work and you just want to get it perfect every time. You're not happy because you're not doing the work properly. Like you want to for example, perfectionism, right? In a sense, you're working with colleagues and you want to improve and you want to be better than everyone else to get a better raise. Like, you know what I mean? So in that case, why do we struggle? Why do we aim for perfectionism in the workplace, for example? Is that one?
Yes, that's one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was so cool. Cause my client from yesterday, the last one I had, she was struggling with perfectionism. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Guys, I didn't. Okay.
It's all alignment.
So yeah, what did you have to say, or what did you guys talk about in that case? Okay,
I'm gonna ask you one question.
Okay.
When did you decide that you're not enough? When did you decide that your work wasn't enough and you had to compare yourself to others?
That's a hard question to trace back.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you find it the first time it happened. Like if I had the idea of perfectionism. Sometimes it trickles here and there, but for me, it happened when I was in grade 1 and I was drawing and the guy I had a crush on, he was like, "Oh, you're not that good. I like Stephanie's better. Look at hers." And I'm just like, oh. So that had to do some rework. But a lot of the time, even the littlest interactions can make a huge impact in your adulthood. There's a lot actually. The most common limiting beliefs people have is fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, not being good enough, or I have to be perfect to do A, B, or C. But for example, when it comes to fear of rejection, a lot of people, you can see this with coworkers, friends, they're usually the people pleasing ones, right? And they're just so scared of being rejected. I hope he invites me to the party. I hope he does this for me. I hope he does that. But it's kind of why are you trying to please them? Where did this come from? And usually most of the time, people pleasing stems from parent pleasing. Because that parent usually was not there. Yes. And that goes into anxious attachment. And that anxious attachment might trickle down into their relationships. And that's when they're like, "Oh, I'm going to buy." I was a victim like this. This was my first relationship. I was like, "I'm going to buy him this, and this." So in my head, it's "Oh, I don't think he'll leave me." I'm buying him so much stuff.
People, that in relationships, people buy things for people to please them, and that goes in all sorts of relationships too, interpersonal. So we'll get into intimate relationships and stuff like that. So let's just I guess interpersonal, we see it's a lot of different ways, but to sum it up, let's sum it up before we move on.
Okay.
What's our biggest takeaway from how to improve the interpersonal relationships, the day-to-day relationships you have with people, whether it's the person you buy your coffee from, to your closest friends, to your coworkers? What question do you ask yourself? Or you know what I mean?
I would say literally focus. What are your top narratives in your head that you're running around every day? Because those top 5 limiting beliefs you might have, the ones we just mentioned, will literally affect every part of your life. Relationships, works, anything.
Yeah.
And if you don't work on them, you're going to self-sabotage everything. So it's not just one, it's everything. Because when it comes to healing, you don't only heal one aspect, you heal everything. Everything has a trickle effect.
Yes.
Like, for example, when you work on yourself, the gym, not only are you motivated to wake up every day at 6 a.m., right? But you're motivated to do other things that are hard. It becomes easier. It becomes discipline.
The way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Exactly. And that's healing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So what about parents now? The way we were raised, our experiences, our memories with our parents, and what that leads to, the inner child. So let's go that route, because we all have a childhood, right? We all have memories of our parents, right? Or people who raised us, right? So what goes wrong there, and what can we how can we start to reframe and relook at these relationships? Maybe parents that just didn't pay attention to you, like ignored you. So how does that show to our inner child? You know what I mean? So how can we start to look at our relationship with our parents?
It's like, you know how sometimes like a child might be neglected, even though like that parent was working all the time. Sometimes the mom literally just has to like provide a roof over their head and food, right? But that kid doesn't know. Like that kid might be 5 or he just wants to play with his mom. But in his head, he just might be like, Mom doesn't love me. She loves work more. And that trickles into abandonment and either creates avoidant or anxious. And avoidant is kind of like, I don't need mom. I don't need love. You know what? Fuck love. That could be them in the adulthood. But then anxious kind of like, I need love. I need to be in a relationship right now. Yeah.
So different avenues can come from the same
perspective.
The same starting place.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard that quote. It's kind of like, pretend you're a dad, okay? And you had 2 kids, Bobby and Amy, okay?
Okay.
And basically, Bobby can be like, and let's say you're an alcoholic.
Just throw that on. Okay.
Okay. Bobby might be like, you know what? My dad was an alcoholic, so I'm going to be an alcoholic. Amy might be like, you know what? My dad was an alcoholic. I'm not going to be an alcoholic. It all depends on the kid's narrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the narrative's like when you're a kid, you don't really know the full scope of things. Like you said, that kid whose parents are not there, the mom's busy working. You see that as mom doesn't love me, but the mom is doing everything she can. So the narrative is really everything, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And that's when you, I praise time technique. That's like one of the modalities I use for like healing. And when it comes to time technique, I kind of like make it my own and bring like inner child healing. And with that, I ask like my clients, when you see this event right in front of you, what lessons can you learn from your future self if you were to come in? It's like, oh, mom's just working, but she still loves you. Stuff like that. It's like reframing that narrative.
Okay. Like, I'm just thinking like when our generation, some of our generation, our parents, how do we like avoid this cycle? How do we, like, you know what I mean? I mean, that's a tough question to think about if you're not a parent, but you don't want to accidentally set up your kids to have insecure attachment styles, because it seems like it's almost inevitable. How do we kind of prevent this? Like, it seems like it just happens all the time. So how do we prevent that as emerging parents or parents currently or whatever, right?
And that's the difficult part, because it's not only from us, but it's also from their teachers, their friends, right? And I was like joking with this to my boyfriend. It's like, I'm gonna do like life coaching on these kids at the age of 3 every week. But
see how that works. Yeah.
But essentially it's kind of like reaffirming them that like what you're doing is good. So like creating that open space for them to talk to you no matter what. Even the littlest thing, like, oh mom, like our little sister doesn't like because she did this. Like, no, she loves you. She just like, she doesn't know much. Creating those like little thoughts into their head. Right. And they're like, oh, you know what? You're right.
You really got to do that. That makes sense. And I actually heard on a podcast kind of related to this, Rob Dial, he does the Mindset Mentor.
Yeah.
The biggest like motivational podcast.
Yes.
He was talking about this perspective when you talk to kids. If a kid accidentally, for example, steals something from another kid or accidentally hits another kid, and they don't understand what's going on. Now they're being disciplined, So now they're thinking, oh no, I did something bad. And so they're going to see it, like you said, the narratives, right? If they get disciplined and put in a corner, then they're going to react a certain way. They're going to say, I shouldn't do this, but now they know what to do when they want to act out. Like they're going to see that narrative very specifically. But what Rob said is a different way of reframing how to like talk to a kid in this example is ask them why they did it and have them try to explain it through their own words, through their own brain, through their own thinking. And then you can come to like and say, okay, well, you did this and that's okay. But next time, you're not going to do this. Next time, what are you going to do? And the kid says, next time, I won't. Next time, I'll just talk to them. The kid figures out, learns through their own, and they kind of create their own narrative as they go, even though they're a small kid, though they're a small kid, right?
Yeah. It's like asking them, like, why did she do that to you? And why did you act this way? And why is that a problem? And what happened if this wasn't a problem? And they'd be like, pow.
So really, like, we got to start these conversations like young and really meaningful, purposeful conversations. But even as adults, I feel like these conversations matter. So we can't really forget that. Okay.
Definitely. And that's even like with adults too, we're allowed to differentiate, for example, sarcasm, right? But a kid can differentiate sarcasm. One example is that like my client yesterday, her mom died at the age of 4. So she has a lot of like abandonment issues. And she found out that like her work wasn't perfect enough, like her content on YouTube was because of her aunt when she was like 4. They said that like if you are good, your mom will come back. But that's sarcasm. As adults, we know that. But how is a 4-year-old gonna know that?
Yeah, that's really like misleading, misguided.
Yeah,
I was like, nah, yeah. So that will not do well saying that. And as a kid, yeah, you don't interpret that properly. You can't.
No. They're gonna be like, you know what? I'm gonna do the dishes. I'm gonna do this. Mom's gonna come back. I'm gonna make her bed.
Yeah. No, that doesn't.
That's trauma.
That's trauma, basically. Yeah.
That's why every little thing you do will affect the kid. But you have to reassure them that you love them and you'll be back. Even if you go to work, you'll be there for them.
Inevitably, we'll be traumatized, but it's how we view them. Like it's our narrative that really will, and the reframing that goes on to kind of bring us to at least a better future with our relationships.
Like, for example, I have this like weird traumatic issue I have. Like, I'm scared of biking certain ways because I got stitches when I was in grade 3, but I do not let anyone touch that. To me, it was a traumatic experience, but a lot of people would be like, it's just stitches. But I'm like, I don't want it to burst.
Oh, right. Fair enough.
And even though like a lot of people think traumatic events are like painful events, but what is pain? Right.
It's like mental, right? Right.
And everybody has different sensitivity. We can't just like put them in one box. Yeah.
That's true. I drank milk that was spoiled at dinner, and then that was disgusting. And now I always get weirded out when I drink milk. Like I always just get weirded out. I can literally remember that time when it was disgusting, and I just can't. But I love milk, but I always think about that one time. And it wasn't like a pain, like a hurt pain. It's just like a gross pain. Right. So trauma can be it's just memories. It's just
memories. That's all it is. Yeah. I had the same one with oatmeal. I remember like at 5 a.m. my dad would used to wake me up for like my swimming practices, and my dad wouldn't like make the oatmeal proper because we were rushing, and he just forced me to eat it. I'm just like,
oh no, gross oatmeal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, I'm sure people that are watching, listening can think of their own like funny traumas. Like we can like it's not funny, but like when you think of like how silly they can be at some points, you realize they're not all pain, like physical pain. Sometimes they're just mental pain. So if we treat them all the same with like, an address them for what they are, acknowledge them, and then work through them, then we can get through, or just acknowledge a small trauma or a large, right?
Basically.
Cool. So intimate, right? What in love, partners, relationships like this, what personal challenges can we overcome to bring ourselves fully into and ready for a serious, committed, and fulfilling relationship? That's the question I'm going to just, expand, because I mean, everyone wants a relationship. Everyone deserves love when they're ready ready to bring themselves
Yeah.
into it, right?
Okay, I'm going to redirect this question to you.
Sure.
How do you know that you're ready for a serious relationship?
That's true.
I just want to know.
I feel like, and I've kind of realized this over the past, I don't know, months, year. It's like if you can date yourself, if you can spend time alone, like, and not alone, but in solitude, like just realize being alone, being comfortable with being with yourself, find appreciation for yourself, who you are. They say love yourself, but I think that's just a very simplistic way of saying it. But if you really appreciate yourself and, acknowledge your shortcomings, your truths, and enough about yourself, you spent that time alone, then you're in a better position to bring yourself to someone else fully.
100%.
Right? That's kind of been my lesson recently, right?
Yeah. I totally agree with you, actually. And the scary thing is that, like, even though like you might love yourself when you're alone, sometimes you just run over the same there. They're like, oh, I love this about myself. I love this. I'm so adventurous, spontaneous. But sometimes when you bring another person into your life, they become a mere reflection of the ugly parts of you, the truth that you've been hiding in the back. And that's what I've learned recently, that like I had to remove certain things in order for me to keep a relationship. Because I had ugly parts that I thought they were good. But what I learned from that is that no matter what point you're in your life, you'll never be truly ready because you always have shit to deal with.
You're not going to be just perfect. You're not going to wake up
Hell
and just
no.
be perfect and
There's no
have dealt
perfect
with
timing.
everything and you're good to go.
Exactly.
Right. Is this kind of like shadow work basically is what we're talking about in a sense?
Yes.
So shadow work, would you say it's very, very important for like bringing yourself into a relationship?
Definitely. It's like dealing with the ugly parts and being consciously aware of it instead of being like narcissistic. It's like, no, it's part of me. Yeah. It's like, I like this side of me. Like one issue I had to deal with a few months ago was like the idea of control. Going back to the topic, the identity shift. I was trying to control certain aspects of my life and in a way control certain people that I know, but like that to me came naturally because that's like sales, that's marketing.
It's like the ugly. So it's like marketing had a good thing, but it rears its ugly head. It's like two sides. It's the shadow work part of it, right? It's okay. Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah.
And it was wrong for me to be a healing coach when I was doing shit subconsciously, even though I wasn't really aware of it. It was still bad. And at the time, like in the beginning, like I was like, there's no moment that you're ever ready. That's what I can say. Because even in like 3 years ago, even though you're different from who you are now, you still had problems before. You still have problems now. You'll still have problems in the future. Right.
That's true. That's a big fact because, I mean, we all deal with the same problem right now with, for example, the pandemic. And you can make excuses about problems and feel like your time is going to come one day, but it comes down to like there's
you make your time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing too with relationship, sometimes, yes, a person is good for you, but like, are they helping you in your growth? Right. Like they reflect that mirror reflection of you as your dirty side, but like, are they willing to be there with you as you like remove it? And if not, then that person isn't meant for you. And essentially with like the idea of like spiritual term, that soul contract is done. You can't force them to come back if their mission in their life was pretty finished.
Soul contract. I've never heard that. I don't think I've heard that quote or that saying.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. You can't, it's just letting go, right? Detaching yourself from things, holding on to things. And that's fair enough. Cool.